welcome to Off the Post as we delve into the discussion topic of, do you focus on the league, do you focus on, like, say, a cup, or do you focus on Europe, depending on when it is in the season and, like, club ambitions and all this kind of stuff. So basically this stems from a number of teams this week, or kind of in the last week, qualified for like the playoff round, or are in the playoff round already, or are in a group stage already, and have obviously prioritised maybe in previous seasons, maybe getting into Europe over like a cup, for example, or they've maybe made it latter stages in Europe, but maybe sacrificed a league position for one season, whatever it may be. And it was quite interesting simply because when I was going through it all, like the games over, like the third qualifying round in particular, teams that were suffering from this in particular were like the likes, in this case, Rangers have been affected because obviously the league position affected them last season, finishing third, meant they were starting off in Europa League qualifiers. They're now into the playoff round for Conference League, which feels unheard of for Rangers. I genuinely would, you think, Champions League and Europa League, but most commonly for the Europa League. Shamrock Rovers going from like the Champions League all the way free falling into the Conference League playoff, and are not even guaranteed the Conference League either. Now, especially because they were comfortable after the first leg and free falling, and it's like sometimes you think, is it like club discipline in a sense, where they've done that, maybe a team's done the hard work in a first leg, where you would say, right, that's some maybe basically guaranteed Europe till December or January, depending on the competition, and you say to yourself, great, that's us focused, we're laughing, but for whatever reason something completely goes wrong and it like costs them hard. And like there's so many teams when I was going through like the European competitions in particular, so many were basically in essence like losing games and like for no like valid reason really, and you say to yourself, why are you losing this? Like for me, like Shamrock Rovers was the biggest shock out of like the Europa League, and like quite a few teams just like do their business, and like Salzburg, for example, they nearly threw away the tie against Paphos but turned it around. PAOK was kind of self-imploded. CSK Sofia nearly threw their one away, and it's like some teams as well have just completely had like disaster classes. Like Dynamo Kiev, for example, they're most common. Like Ukraine, Shakhtar, and Dynamo Kiev over the years have been kind of consistent between Champions League and Europa League, but in recent years they've kind of just struggled for various reasons. And like for Dynamo Kiev not even make the Conference League feels quite a shock, because you've been so used to them being like in the top two powerhouses of Ukrainian football, and it's like with Belarus, it was like for a number of years it was Bati Borisov, but now it's just like everybody from Dynamo Minsk, Vitebsk, Sologorsk had a stint as well. And it just makes always quite fascinating viewing when you see some like clubs and countries just kind of get themselves like to the dance, as it were, of making it. Like for example, Hibs is in my prime example. Obviously Hibs had done the hard work last week. Yes, it was scrappy 2-1 last week, but they won the tie, beating Shikenja over the two legs 2-1, as they drew 0-0 in Macedonia. And like it made all the difference to them because now they play Ghent on Thursday over the 2 legs, and Ghent haven't been great in the 2 ties that they have played so far. And I would say, if I'm honest, Hibs really should fancy their chances. Like, Gothenburg nearly won it late on the night to go to extra time, because it would have been 2-1 over 90 minutes, because if you're doing it as a bet over 90 minutes, it would be Gothenburg won the tie. But for me, like, so many teams in like first legs of ties especially made it harder for themselves. Like, Ajax made it hard work, obviously won the first leg 3-1, but it finished 2-2 in the second leg. And like, for coefficient points, that's great for Shelburne, but obviously it's like, can make it trickier for other teams, as it were, in the grand scheme of things. Like, and also for clubs like Hibs, Motherwell, they have one eye on like the League Cup at the weekend, just there. Obviously for various reasons. Now, the thing is, for them is, like, for Hibs and Motherwell, on paper, and Hearts, I should say, the 3 of them should all get through, and Rangers against St Mirren. But so the 4 teams that are all playing on Sunday in those ties, they'd all expect, right, we're in the quarter final. Then it's like saying, right, but the problem is, for Hibs and Motherwell, like for Hearts in particular, they've got to have one eye on playing a weakened team to try and beat Rapid, because you've now got to kind of say, look, we've free fallen from the second qualifying round in the Champions League against Sturm Graz. We got hammered by Benfica. We've now got Rapid Vienna. Rapid Vienna are beatable. Yes, we have played already one Austrian team, and Rapid will have picked up notes against Sturm Graz, knowing how Sturm Graz play, and said, right, we can kind of set ourselves up quite similar. We know what our strengths and weaknesses are. And like, for me, like, for Hearts have to kind of beat them at Tynecastle at least to have a chance, and obviously in Austria is kind of where it could swing the tie. It's like with Hibs, they're playing in Belgium in the first leg against Ghent. They play Partick in the Cup. I would be playing my second string as much as possible. Anyone that's needing minutes in them, like McGrath, if Nicky Cadden's fit, play him. Maybe even give Boyle half an hour or a half. But make sure that the players that are on the bench are players that aren't going to be playing in the first leg at all. Basically have nobody. Literally say, right, give people that need minutes in them, like your Clichés and Ormanas, Alisana Mani, literally just say, right, lads, we're going to really go for it in this tie. Because, like, if I'm honest, League Cup, all well and good, but a second team should still be too strong. Like this, Lexi Smith, Hanley, Iredale, some of the younger lads like McIntyre and whatnot, even say Newell and whatnot, just say, right, literally, I've spoken about it already, and you say, right, that's the team we should be playing against Partick. Motherwell, kind of the same feeling. Literally play all the young lads, give everyone that's not going to be playing against Freiburg, because as hard as Freiburg will be, you might still say to yourself, we might have a half a chance here against Freiburg, because Motherwell might just be a stubborn side against the team that made the Europa League final against Villa, but you never know. And Rangers might have one eye against Jablonec for the same reason, and that's where it kind of goes back to the argument of, especially at this stage of the season in leagues like Scotland, does this then make it easier for, say, Celtic, because they could be looking at it where the bigger teams like Hearts, like Hibs, like Rangers and Motherwell have all got one eye on the like European competitions, and the likes of Aberdeen, Dundee, Dunfermline and Celtic, like, you could almost near enough have like 1/4 of the draw in Killie. They're fine, but you never know. You might have Inverness, you could have Partick, Stenhousemuir, and St Mirren suddenly being the other teams that will go through because Hibs have maybe slackened, or Motherwell slackened, or Hearts have slacked, whatever, and it bites you back in the backside. And then the counter argument is that a lot of these teams that are playing in like the Champions League qualifiers for the playoff round, or the Europa League, or the Conference League, regardless of country, is do they then have everything in like place to say, right, we are X club. So if you look at like Dynamo Zagreb, for example, or a Viking, like Viking I don't think I've ever been in the Champions League before, but they've got a golden chance. Like Levski Sofia apparently have never been in the Champions League. These are clubs that have somehow managed to just get into the in and have like they're guaranteed the Europa League, but they've got a real golden chance of somehow creating that little bit of history where if they were to win the basically the tie to get them through, they could be looking at a lot of riches, knowing that they've had to do the hard work of getting through so many qualifying rounds of the Champions League. Like Levski Sofia to go from like the first qualifying round to play of Borac and the Bosnian champions, then Craiova of Romania, then play Kairat, and basically just win all the ties apart from 2 draws. Takes about doing, but they managed to do enough to obviously win the league title in Bulgaria for like the first time in like a long time, I think. Like Ludogorets and obviously like CSK Sofia over the years have been kind of like the powerhouses, but like Levski won it comfortably, and it's just sometimes nice to see different clubs get into the Champions League. Obviously, like they're not likely to win these competitions, but they've got a chance at least getting into the Champions League, where they've got a chance of the monies and the riches that it brings just for qualifying, and you've got to take it. Like for Dynamo Zagreb, Viking, Levski, AAK, in particular, these 4, what they'll find is just getting in always can make a difference in terms of bringing players in, offloading a few and whatnot, and saying, right, what do we need, what do we not need. Like for Fenerbahce in particular, it's where because they've brought in a lot of players to challenge for the league title as per usual, but they've not been in the Champions League, somebody was saying, since 2008, which I was like, really? Is it that long? I could have sworn they'd maybe been in before then. But it's makes for always like fascinating viewing when you see yourself Fenerbahce, you think they're like powerhouses of like Turkish football, and like they've been able to attract like a lot of quality players like over the years. But it's sometimes you've got to remember that they have just like it's quite startling when I was like reading over it. Like for the last basically since the COVID season, they've literally been second like every season. It's mad. But like they're a club that you say, like for those that I know that support them, have always had like great pedigree, and but if like you think to yourself, for the teams that like Fenerbahce have played over the years, you think to yourself, you'd think in your head, oh, surely they've made like a Champions League. Like over the years, the furthest that they've got in any competition is the Europa League, Conference League, sorry, in the 23-24 season when they got quarterfinals. I'm reading this as I go. Braga 2015-16 for the round of 16. 2012-13 was the semis against Benfica, but going back to the point of the last time they actually made the Champions League is the 08-09 season where they had Porto, Arsenal, Dynamo Kiev. And they have had quite a few Champions League playoff rounds. They've had like Arsenal, which will have stung a bit because you say, so why Arsenal? Benfica, they've had a thorn in their side over the years. Dynamo Kiev, Lille. It's just, but this year they've had Gornik, Sturm Graz, and now they've got Lyon to kind of get into the Champions League proper for the first time in 18 years. It's kind of like, and they put a lot of money into getting the team improved to compete, and like it's like Lyon as well. They've had like the financial difficulties with their hierarchy, and you see it yourself, these teams, it makes a big difference. It's the same with Celtic. They've spent a lot of money in recent days and weeks to suddenly compete. In LSK are a shrewd team in Austria, had decent European pedigree, but also the other ties that night, like Beersheva, they've been in Champions League once before. Saba have never been, NEC have never been, but Bodo Glint, team that's brought a lot of buzz over the last like decade, like against like say Roma, Man City, and countless other teams. That if they can get back in the Champions League, it would be excellent for them, and that they could hopefully really get back into like. They've been a big reason why the UEFA coefficient for Norway has went up massively, where Viking and Bodo are able to compete. Like Slovan Bratislava was the one that interested me as well. I thought they'd been in the Champions League even just once before, but I think it was because of Art Media Bratislava when they beat Celtic all the years ago. I think that was what kind of like made the difference. But I was quite shocked by it when I was like digging around, because obviously, but I think what it is, it's because a lot of the time is they are quite commonly been a team that's usually been a like playoff round, or like a last qualifying round before the playoff round club, as it were. And I was like, and I think because now with the Conference League as well, you kind of see where they do kind of get in. But then when I was like digging around, I thought someone had said that Slovan Bratislava had never been in Europe, and I thought I was digging around and I thought they had, because it was the year they played Celtic. I thought they played Celtic the very first game, and it was one of these pages. And what it was as well is they played. And the funny thing is they're going to play Celja, sorry, and Celja. Basically, I think had never been in either. They've never been in like the Champions League, but like for when the year Slovan Bratislava got through, they had to work through from the first qualifying round just to get into the groups. And yes, they lost every game, got hammered off the park, but it was special for them just getting it into the league phase for the first time and being able to like compete. But they know, regardless, that they've guaranteed league phase for the Europa League, but they should have too much, if I'm personally honest, for making like the Champions League. They should feature, like Celja have never happened for the like anything beyond the Conference League, which gave them that opportunity. But it's going to be like a big step for Celja to achieve. They're a little bit of history, but I think for like Celja, but as they said for Celtic, getting in, like for a lot of these teams, they say it's like £30 million it's worth. If it's worth £30 million to like a Bratislava, Celja, Celtic, Saba, whatever, these kind of teams, it basically sets them up. And that's when you see yourself, like in Scotland for the second legs, for example, is where they have made a lot of these teams in leagues. They're not playing the European games. They're not playing the league games for the second leg. And like if I was in Scotland, for example, for a League Cup, I would be saying, right, can we not just put these League Cup games after Europe and just put them on a Saturday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday? Try and like give Hibs, Rangers, Motherwell, etc. as much breathing space as possible. Have they got injuries? Have they got whatever? Like yes, in Hibs' case and Motherwell's case, like for Ghent, for example, for Hibs in Hibs' case, Ghent are playing La Louvière in Belgium this weekend, but it's like you say to yourself, it's a favourable fixture for them that they can probably kind of rest a lot of the players that's within the squad. But obviously they've not got the second leg to kind of stress about for a league fixture because the league's given them that breathing space to say, right, you prioritise Europe, and they've got the squad depth to kind of say, right, we're going to hopefully play second string against La Louvière, get minutes in for players that kind of need to be playing, but the money, if we qualify for the playoff round, if you're Ghent or Hibs or whatever, can make a big difference. Because I think they say that's 3 million minimum or five. I read somewhere that it was like worth 5 or 6 million as well. But someone had said it depends on the team as well, because they were explaining it as it was worth at least a minimum of like say 3, but it was like the smaller teams. But then it was worth say if Hibs qualified, it was worth 5, and then like if Freiburg qualified, it's worth like 8, 7 or 8 million. But then the time if they get through the group stages, if they win it, it's like worth like 20, 15, 20 million. But then Europa League, it's like worth a minimum of 10, and then so forth and so forth. It was like the numbers were just going kind of like not silly, but it was just not necessarily explained brilliantly. Because like Europa League, like Rangers will kick themselves because Iberia they should beat comfortably, if I'm personally honest. And when I was like looking at a lot of the ties for like the Europa League, Shamrock would fancy their chances against Lillestrøm. As I said, Rangers would fancy Iberia. Jablonec, if I'm personally honest, is the harder tie. Hearts, if they had never been drawn against Benfica, would have fancied Aarhus. But it's the argument that a lot of them were saying is when you look at a lot of the teams that when they're trying to play in Europe, like for example, Midtjylland in Denmark, they've got a great system. Yes, they've got a lot of players that have sold and a couple others that have got people interested in them, like Francisco Ju and Pedro Bravo and a couple others. But Midtjylland and Rijeka kind of up there with like the top 2 or 3 clubs within their league, and they're got one of them's basically losing the tie before they start, where whoever gets knocked out is going to be losing a lot of European money, and there's also that worry where teams will come sniffing about for their players because, in as I said, Midtjylland's case, they'll look at the likes of Jew. If they know, oh, he's not playing in Europe, Midtjylland have to kind of maybe offset money that they've lost for not qualifying, and you kind of then have to say to yourself, right, what do we do? And it's like with Rijeka, like Tony Fruch, for example, is a prime example. Their teams might be interested in him, and like if you can't afford to kind of lose these players, it's makes it like where your priorities lie of like league, like try to balance like competing for the league, competing for a European spot, a League Cup, a domestic cup, whatever. Because obviously in some countries they might not necessarily have a League Cup. It's the like the Nations Cup, as it were, because obviously not every has a league cup, but it's mostly just a national cup and obviously a league to compete against. Another big and when I was going through a lot of the ties, especially in the Conference League, teams that would love the chance to be playing is like your Lincoln, Red Imps, Larne, Classic and Riga. That's like a 50-50 tie. I would say Classic are too strong if I'm personally honest. Norgisland and St Gallen. Norgisland's a top 5 team in Denmark. St Gallen's like a top 4, top 5. One of them's going to be losing out. PAOK and Brann, same kind of situation. They're both like top 4 clubs in their league. Twente and Qarabag are like the top country in Azerbaijan. Twente is like a top 5, top 6 club in the Netherlands. Ajax and Sion, kind of same scenario. Atalanta is like one of the top 7 clubs in top 7, top 8 clubs in Italy. Tel Aviv's like one of the top 4. Ghent and Hibs are technically the top 5 because Hibs were 5th last season. Ghent are like 5th, and it makes for fun viewing. Hearts were 2nd, obviously, last season, and Rapid Vienna is like a top 6. Braga and Austria Vienna, similar kind of situation. Getafe, first time in Europe in I think a long time. Partizan, it's like for Hibs, when I was looking at all the possible, I was like, if we could have got Partizan again, it would have been banterous because we beat them the first time, we'd want to play them a second time, beat them to qualify. Ghent are still equally beatable. Like, if I was told, when I was looking at all the teams that we could have faced, and I was like, even before you put the blocks together, I was like, the seeded teams, that it was like the whole pile of the lower tiered ones. And I was basically saying if Ghent, I think, was the highest team that I would like to have faced. And I think if I remember right, Partizan was just on the unseeded, but it was like at the time they were on the cusp of like seeded, unseeded. It was like depending on ties, and I thought, could we get, if we could draw Partizan again, would be perfect because I thought they're beatable, and that is the thing. Like a lot of these clubs, like Braga's like a top 4 Portuguese team. They will have one eye on trying to qualify for the not just qualify for it, but win it, and that's what a lot of these teams will be looking at when you look at the qualifying rounds. For the playoff round, if I was to look at the Conference League, in fact, I'll start from the Europa League and work up to the Conference League. Teams that will genuinely fancy their chances of going like deep in the competition are like Salzburg, like Besiktas, like Trabzonspor, because Trabzonspor have spent a lot of money to compete this season, and having Salah is going to be a big thing for them. Benfica's going to really fancy their chances. And then when you look at the Conference League, I suppose like Midtjylland, if they were to get through, will kind of hope to go far. Brighton would like to go far. Monaco to go deep. Ajax, Atalanta, Freiburg, obviously because of the basis of last season in the Europa League, making the final. Rangers, because of their previous European pedigree, would like to fancy their chances of going far, and they should expect to go far. Because the calibre of teams in the Conference League aren't as strong as the Europa League, that they should be saying, right, we should be a top 8 club, shouldn't have to worry about last 32 playoff, we should be laughing. Braga would expect to go deep, and going on recent kind of form, Paphos might think they could go a wee bit far, or Getafe, but and that's just from teams that are in the these kind of rounds, and that's where for a lot of these teams, if they were to get into the competition outright, qualify, whether it be top 32, 36, whatever it may be, but then if they were to be like even a top 8 club in that case in the ranking in the league stage, that they can say, right, we have a real chance of already going deeper, where they can look at all the extra money, because the last 16, because I'd imagine they would look at it and say, right, we are then guaranteed a real chance of basically going deep to the point of basically bringing in like serious money to give ourselves a real chance of putting like not just players, like new players but it could put more eyes onto the team, and that's kind of what you want, really. And because I said, like when I was doing like some of the numbers as well, it's like for like we'll go back to like a Hibs or a Hearts. Them qualifying for the league phase is roughly around £3 million. 3 million euros is what it says in this when you do digging around. Getting wins is worth around 400,000, like 400,000 pound. So if you're getting like £300,000 for winning a game, drawing the game's £100,000, right? So if you can, depending on who you get, and if you were to qualify, like top 24 or guaranteed round of 16, like if you basically are a top 8 club, you're smashing out. You could, if you win all your games, get round to 16, you're basically getting so much extra money. You're basically guaranteeing kind of like mega bucks, really. And it's kind of important to kind of factor in, really, for quite a few of these teams where the money of qualifying for Europe usurps massively for like a League Cup, a Nations Cup. The only time it really matters is obviously if you're a team that gets maybe to a final, knowing that maybe the league position you're maybe weakened, but because of the is where you're able to say, right, we've won the cup. Sorry, we've made the final or we've won the cup, but the league position's been rubbish, but it's helped us out. And it's important to kind of just factor in, really, like what are you really playing for in the grand scheme of things. And it's about just being smarter, really, with what's at your disposal. And so it's like what works for you, really, in the grand scheme of things at this stage of the season. Like, what are you prioritising? Like, I'm hoping for Hibs that we send a strong contingent to Belgium, maybe draw or sneak a narrow win, but no, I'm hoping we do not lose at all. And I feel like we're capable of doing that. And then knowing that we can get a result at Easter Road in the second leg, finally qualify for a group stage, have fun. Like for me, I've not experienced it, and it's not even like the riches to me that bothers me. It's the experience, and I think that's what a lot of these teams in the playoff round, if they've never ever qualified for a group stage, that's like the carrot that they're playing for, and also for a lot of these teams as well, knowing that they make Europe, can also, like the group stage, can also put more eyes, if especially like TV money, because as much as you're maybe guaranteed the competition money, you're also going to get maybe say TV money, because for like Hibs that maybe be on TNT Sports in the UK, might be also other networks that are streaming it, that will show it because of who they're playing. If they get a big team, maybe they get like, say, Atalanta, for example. So maybe the Italian TV picks it up and says, "Oh, Hibs v Atalanta, blah blah blah," and it's what makes all the difference, really. So it's important to say, right, what are you kind of like the amount of money that a team could make, and also just for qualifying, some teams might also then get transfer money because teams are like, "Oh, I want that player. He played well in the qualifying rounds, or played well in the group stage. I want him in January." And if maybe, say, in the summer, he was maybe worth, say, £1 million, but he's maybe now worth 3 million or 5 million, and it makes all the difference to that club's balance, as it were. And teams are always like looking at that for opportunities to kind of help their balances, because they know sometimes, oh, we can't always compete with maybe the top team in the league because of they're always winning the league. They're maybe just too strong, like in Scotland it's Celtic and Rangers. Maybe in, say, the Netherlands it could be like because of Feyenoord and Ajax and PSV. They're commonly the top three. Or maybe in a you could maybe go to a smaller country. It could be like a Republic of Ireland. It's maybe like if Shamrock Rovers are making it there, and maybe now able to always not just win the league title, but just kind of extend like their stranglehold on it, for example. They're maybe then able to use the money to maybe somehow qualify for the Champions League, for example. They might be able to achieve that wee bit of history because of maybe draws that are now in their favour, or maybe attract a better calibre of player. And that's what people have just got to remember in the grand scheme of things. That a lot of these clubs, if they've never qualified for a group stage, whether it be Champions League, Europa League, or Conference League, that they have to obviously hope and pray draws go in their favour, and how far they, and maybe if they're getting to the playoff round, or maybe just being able to get into the group stage, it's just that chance that where they're able to say, right, we've achieved that little bit of history. And yeah, we'll see what happens. It's going to be fun and games over the next week. Not just the next week, but the next 2 weeks, as it were, for a lot of these clubs, what happens. And yeah, see what happens. It's going to be fun and games. Look forward to it. And hopefully a lot of teams can have their moment in the sun, as it were. But let me know, folks, how your clubs are doing domestically, what your hopes are. If they're in Europe, what hopes do you have with them, and all that kind of good stuff. So have a good one, folks. Thanks for listening, and I will catch you all later.